Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a new show. I felt like I was kind of branching too much into, so say like JE Live for my Rams audience and my MCU audience and my horror audience and my music audience, whatever. I was just branching into it too much. So, welcome if you guys are watching this after the fact, since I'm, doing this live pretty early on in the day. Most of my viewers are later on. So this is probably a pre-recorded video for most of you, but welcome in. This is MCU Live, or MCU Edge, excuse me, and it's the first time I'm doing this. We're going to be talking about Hawkeye. Basically, this is going to be like my preview, recap and reaction series of Hawkeye and what can, really come of this in the MCU. For those of you who've been following, I covered, first off, I covered Loki. I covered, Falcon Winter Soldier, a little bit of WandaVision. And so I figured, all right, well, we've done 3 out of the 4. Let's complete that and do the other, Disney Plus TV show. So before I get into it, I do have an ad read I have to throw out here. It's from our partners from MyBookie. Everybody is trying to get in on the best crypto, but if you want a guaranteed way to double your money, all you need to do is use promo code JKDTR at MyBookie. It's simple. Sign up at MyBookie with promo code JKDTR, and your first deposit is immediately doubled all the way up to $1,000. How's that for a quick turnaround on your investment? With the NFL playoff race heating up and the college bowl season just around the corner, double your firepower at MyBookie to get action in on the most important games of the season. Build your own props, create multi-game parlays, and take part in a host of MyBookie cash prize contests. This is the best time of the year to watch and bet on sports because you know who the winners are by now. Don't miss out. Double your first deposit by using promo code JKDTR and keep your eyes peeled for more exclusive holiday promotions coming soon at mybookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And yes, I understand for those of you that are new here or, are just coming in here for the MCU content, have no idea why I just read a sports betting thing. This is mainly a sports channel, but we tend to, deviate from that. So let's talk about it, okay? For those of you that haven't already seen it, be sure to get out of here. I appreciate you guys supporting, but I don't want to spoil anything. This is going to be talking about episodes 1, 2, and 3. As of right now, I do highly recommend that you take a gander at this show, Hawkeye, because it is now streaming on Disney Plus, and the first 3 episodes are out. So, starting with the first one, the introduction, introducing Kate Bishop to the MCU. It was kind of cool. It's a different type of, take on her story, so to speak, her origin story, and they spun it more into the MCU style, which I like. It's not entirely comic book accurate, which I don't really care for, because at the end of the day, you can't make everything comic book accurate. One, no one would care to watch any of the movies, but 2, if it was entirely comic book, accurate, there's a lot of different character arcs that go on. There's a lot of different things that go on. It would just make things very odd in that sense. So what's up, Will? How you doing? Thanks so much for joining. So essentially with Hawkeye, the first episode, you're introducing Kate Bishop, the MCU. Obviously, her mother there, played by Vera Farmiga, she's a little on the, I guess, sketch side. Her father's dead, and Hawkeye basically saved her life early on in the show. They do kind of a flashback scene, the New York, everything going on, the Avengers, the events from the Avengers movie, and that's that. Basically, to make a long story short, she ends up taking the Ronin costume, which we saw in Avengers Endgame. We found out Clint Barton, of course, Hawkeye, was playing the role of Ronin because he was one of the only ones that survived well, one of half of one of the only Avengers, but half of the population that survived the snap. So during the snap, he becomes Ronin, which is basically this anti-hero vigilante that just kills a bunch of mob bosses and, crime families all throughout. And unfortunately, because of that, gained, Ronin gained that like reputation. And so basically Kate Bishop, when she goes to this auction and she takes the Ronin costume to save everybody from these people called the Tracksuits. They're another, gang that Ronin went after. She takes the Ronin costume, not knowing she's planted a target right on her back, essentially. So it is a little bit of a rocky start for, our protagonist, Kate Bishop. And we find out that her stepfather, or soon-to-be stepfather, Jack, isn't, all of that normal himself. As a matter of fact, he was at that auction and did actually steal the Ronin sword, which was used by Clint Barton in the Avengers Endgame movie. But, all in all, we're dealing with some interesting stuff here, early plot points. We have, that's Kate Bishop on that side. Then, Hawkeye's side of things, he's trying to spend Christmas with his kids and his wife and trying to get back to having a family life and, things going back to normal. And then while he's enjoying, the finer things in life, he's on, he has a TV on, and all of a sudden the TV comes on and basically finds out someone has taken the Ronin costume. So he is worried for their safety. Because he knows, obviously, Ronin isn't back like everyone's saying. He is Ronin, and he retired that alias, so to speak. So the first episode is all about that. They come across each other, and he basically gets Kate Bishop in an alley and, pulls off the mask and finds that it's Kate Bishop. And, he can't believe it because he is surprised that it's a girl. He's surprised that it's a young kid, and she can't believe it because it's Hawkeye that's chasing her. So episode 2 is a little bit of an expansion on that. We get some, back, a little bit of dialogue between Jack, the soon-to-be stepfather, and, obviously, if you don't know in the comics or you don't know anything about him, he is a sword master from the comics. It's pretty obvious. You can tell if you know. If you don't, then there you go. So, they end up having a little bit of a sparring match, so to speak. Some interesting stuff in episode 2, including Vera Farmiga's character, which is just kind of all over the place. And you can tell that this Bishop company that she has, the security company, you can just tell that there's something off here. There's something off. It's sketchy. I have just watched and finished most of the Marvel Netflix series. I just finished Punisher. I've already finished Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and the Defenders. And I can tell you, this is kind of giving me some vibes. This show in particular is giving me some vibes that not only will we get some Daredevil connecting, but we also get connecting to, the other shows as well. I really feel like they're using Hawkeye as a bridge into that Netflix Marvel world. And we've heard over and over again from Kevin Feige that he, never say never and all of that. We know that Vincent D'Onofrio has been rumored to be Kingpin in this series for quite a bit now. We've heard rumors that Echo, who's in episode 3 that I'll get into in a sec. Echo is going to have her own show, and that show is going to be technically Daredevil season 4. So we've heard of all of that. It's a matter of it coming together, and we'll see if it does. But it's definitely an interesting start to the whole thing, because you can tell that while you want to believe that Kate Bishop's mom is good and everything, there's something that tells you, especially Vera Farmiga, who has played, good characters in the past, but mainly she plays more of like a Norma Bates from Bates Motel. Somebody that's kind of on the edge of, well, they're, you like them because, Vera does a great job, and, you know, she kind of tricks you into, you know, you liking the character. But then at the end of the day, I mean, they end up always being some sort of shady figure, especially Norma Bates from Bates Motel. So we do know that Kate Bishop's mom is a little shady. We do know about, you know, Armand Duquesne, who, I mean, you know, he's not, he, like, so far, like, he's obviously, he was killed, but, you know, we know that it's not, things aren't normal there. Like, there's something off, and Swordmaster's probably behind it, Jack. So, you know, there's that going on. And then we go into episode 3, where we see Echo at the end of 2, going into 3, the tracksuits that have kidnapped Clint Barton and Kate Bishop. And that whole thing, you know, really, it's just, it is what it is. It's kind of the worst episode of the bunch, but it does tease some backstory and a huge reveal early on with the potential. We don't know for sure, but it sure looked like Kingpin when he reaches down on a young Echo as a child, grabbing her cheek and laughing. It sounds and looks as though it is Kingpin's arm, but you can't really tell. I think it's pretty obvious it's Kingpin, but they don't tell you exactly what it is. There was a funny scene that I understand if some of you like Imagine Dragons, you won't find it funny, but personally I don't. So I thought it was really funny that Kate Bishop at one point with one of the tracksuit guys says, well, the best thing, you know, at least you don't have to listen to Imagine Dragons. I just thought that was really funny. But, you know, looking at this show so far, we have 3 episodes. If you guys haven't already checked it out, please go and watch Hawkeye on Disney+. But if you have, then continue listening, because this is all gonna really turn into something big, I think. You have to keep in mind, with the MCU the way it's going, and how it's going cosmic, and how it's going, like, big and multiversal and all of that, this is 2 years after Endgame. This is the newest thing in the timeline that we've seen, Hawkeye. So, it's really intriguing to me how this is being done and everything, because when you look at it, I mean, what's going on? You have Hawkeye, you have Kate Bishop, you have the tracksuits, you have the Duquesnes, you know, Swordmaster, you have potential, you know, obviously you have Echo, you have Kazi, which is the henchman, you know, with Echo, kind of like the Joker figure in the comics, if you will. They're Marvel's version of the Joker. And then, you know, you look at, you know, the potential of having Wilson Fisk, which then opens up the potential of having Punisher, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, you know, all of that Hell's Kitchen crew. So there's a lot to take in from the first 3 episodes. And, you know, they've kind of, you know, they've teased a little bit. They haven't teased a ton, but, you know, they definitely kind of, you know, they kind of teased Kingpin. I mean, first off, you have the Kingpin, like I was talking about, the sleeve in that scene. But then, you know, you can't discount the fact that they're talking about their uncle. And then at one point, you know, Kate is asking, you know, Clint Barton, hey, who's higher up than Echo? And he says, there's somebody higher up and you don't want to know. So I 100% think it's Kingpin. Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. And thank you so much for joining in. I do think it's Kingpin. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious it's Kingpin. We don't know for sure, but I mean, I think they made that pretty obvious. Because who else would it be? I mean, who else is so iconic for, you know, the suit jacket or whatever that Kingpin has? I mean, come on now. So, plus it also sounds like Vincent D'Onofrio. But I guess, you know, the question I have is, who is going to come out of this part in the MCU? Because we already do know that Echo is going to have its own show. We do know that they have already talked about the potential of bringing in Daredevil and Punisher and Jessica Jones, and it's not guaranteed, but, you know, we do know that, right? And we do know that Yelena Belova is confirmed for this series. And how do we know that? Because at the end of Black Widow, we get that the post-credits scene with her going to kill Clint Barton, so to speak. Because, you know, Madam Hydra shows her a picture and says, you know, this is who killed your sister, essentially. So, you know, I think Yelena, there's a lot of connections there. Nick, I agree with you there. I don't know if Clint is going to die at the end. I think they'll keep him around. I think this was a big point, though, to show we're putting Kate Bishop in the MCU. She's going to be a focal point moving forward of the young characters. And, I mean, there's 3 Hawkeye characters in the comics. It's not just, you know, Kate Bishop and Clint Barton. It's also Clint's daughter. So we'll see if that ends up coming to fruition in this, you know, this series. But yeah, at the hands of Yelena, possible, or Kingpin himself. Yeah, you know, I definitely think this is going to be huge though, because, and it's gonna. Here's the thing: when you're introducing Kingpin, it's gonna tie into Spider-Man, and it's gonna tie into Venom. And I think this is the great thing about this show. And I think, like, don't be surprised if there's a super connection to No Way Home, because the fact of the matter is that they strategically placed this show right before No Way Home. So that, I mean, that's what I would say, you know, is that you can't discount that fact. I definitely don't think, you know, it's a foregone conclusion that, you know, this connects into No Way Home, but where it's placed on the timeline is extremely interesting. It comes after Venom. I just think there's a lot of things that are open, and it's going to be very fun to see. My question is, if they do bring in, you know, the old cast, which it sounds like they will. It sounds like Echo is going to be Daredevil season 4, essentially. And it's going to bring in the old Karen and Foggy Nelson and Matt Murdock. But I guess my question would be, you know, if that's the case, then, you know, where does this stop? Are we going to get recast for, say, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones? Is it just going to be the Daredevil? That's the thing. And on top of it, what about the Hand? You know, did the Hand already happen? I've heard things where it's going to be a soft reboot. I've heard things where it's a completely new reboot with the same cast. And I've actually heard that it's taking place just where it left off in the, you know, the Marvel Netflix series. But I guess the real question is, in the Marvel Netflix series, was that in an alternate timeline, or is that in the sacred timeline that we've been watching? I understand the multiverse is happening, and I get that, but where does Luke Cage, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Punisher, and Iron Fist, where does that fall in the timeline? Is that a sacred timeline thing? That's the question that we need to have answered. Or maybe Yelena hurts Clint where he can't fight. We get Kate versus Yelena, even though I think Yelena. Yeah, well, I think it'll be interesting because they have to introduce the Thunderbolts at some point, and at one point or another in the Thunderbolts, in the comics, the Punisher did join up with them. So, you know, that would be very intriguing to see if anything like that happened. I want the next Spider-Man trilogy to have Symbiote, Kingpin, and Gwen Stacy. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're definitely leaning towards Kingpin. The Symbiote, I feel like, was almost already confirmed at one point, but I don't remember where, but I do remember it being confirmed or said that if they do another film, that's what it would be about. I guess the thought about the whole Spider-Man thing is that, you know, it's really with, you know, as far as Spider-Man goes, the first 3, like the first trilogy, and someone like leaked that this was originally their plan. I guess they're going to stick with it. I didn't know anything about it. But originally their plan was that, according to this leak, the first 3 were going to be in high school, the next 3 were going to be in college, and the next 3 were going to be adulthood. And I think that's a really good way to do it. I just didn't think we'd get 9 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, which is, I mean, that'd be just absolutely epic. But, you know, having him grow with the character makes so much sense, though, for sure. The post-credit scene also got confirmed by Daniel RPK. What do you mean by the post-credit scene? I'm confused on that, Nick. I can't wait for the Thunderbolts. I feel like I was the only one of the only people who like John Walker. It sucks. It's like John Walker at every point annoyed me, but then at the end I just felt bad for him because John Walker has no idea what he's about to be doing. He's not exactly on the side of good. Madam Hydra isn't good. But it's sad because he seems like he's so amped. He's like, yes, I'm going to get my life back. I'm going to get back to being a good guy. To me, I think he was always trying to be good. I think he just got blinded by, all of the hype and everything of being Captain America, and it overwhelmed him. So that was always an interesting character. Spider-Man No Way Home post-credit scene got leaked and confirmed by Daniel RPK. Oh, I did not see that. I don't know if I want to see it. I guess if you want, you can tell me. You can tell me if it has anything to do with what is it, Multiverse of Madness or not? Because I have no idea. But yeah, there's just there's a lot going on. MCU is getting a lot. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think a big thing for me is the secondary characters and how they turn them into stars. You look at what they did with Shang-Chi, you look what they did with Loki, although Loki's not secondary, but Loki wasn't like top notch. Loki was bolstered with that show. Okay, good. Loki was bolstered with that show, and on top of it, Wanda Maximoff, WandaVision. I mean, they just did such a nice job. Falcon and Winter Soldier, those are secondary characters that they're turning into stars. So I'm really curious to see what they'll do with She-Hulk. There's a rumor that Kingpin was supposed to be in that. And on top of that, Jessica Jones. So I would absolutely love Jessica Jones in the MCU. I think she belongs in the MCU. She's great. Kristen Ritter was phenomenal as Jessica Jones. You know what I love so much about that series is that in that series, it had hints of, Marvel, obviously. Didn't have the most fighting, so to speak, but it was way more on the horror side of things. It played a lot with horror elements, and as you guys know, if you know me, I'm a big horror nut, so I loved watching the different horror elements that came together with that show, and I felt like, definitely bringing her into the MCU was the right move. Although I will say this, I will definitely say this, okay? At the end of the day, okay, I hate that they canceled the Netflix series, although I did just start watching them and finishing them. But I hate it now, looking at it. I mean, I don't know how you only had 2 seasons of The Punisher. I don't know how you didn't keep going with Daredevil, except for the fact that it was money-induced, and, I don't think, since Netflix didn't have the rights to those shows, they couldn't keep going. But I also understand it's a weird situation because, Marvel wants to have control. Disney wants to have control of Marvel. I get it. But the reason it's a weird situation is because there's no way that rated R Punisher, because that's basically like rated R, the rated R Punisher or the rated R Jessica Jones or rated R Daredevil, there's no way that will go and will fly in the MCU with Disney. That's the thing. That's the one thing I think that's holding those back, and why they almost have to be completely stripped away from what made them. That grit and the gore and the horror. And I think that's a big thing, is because you look at Punisher and all of the gore, and there's so much blood in that show, and it's so dark. I don't know if it could ever go on a Disney Plus platform. So that is that's the one thing there. Disney saw Deadpool, say Deadpool would be rated R. If that's the case, then it opens up a whole can of worms in a good way for the Netflix series. And I'll say this, if they're serious about that and they stick to it, it's easier said than done. We'll see if Disney actually signs off on it. But if they do, if that's 100% confirmed, then, you know, I don't think anything's holding us back from seeing a Jon Bernthal Punisher season 3 on Disney+. I mean, I really don't. That did extremely well. It had the, you know, the dark elements to it, which was what I felt like might be holding it back. And keep this in mind, with Feige, you know, he's kind of digesting the whole, you know, Wolverine and X-Men. He wants to wait. You know, he wants to wait for X-Men to get some time and then just, like, bring them back out. And I feel like that's what he's doing with the Netflix series as well. Now, what's curious to me is, like, the Agent Carter series is on Disney+. Will we eventually see the Netflix series come over and be able to be streamed on Disney+? Not saying that I care, because I can watch them on Netflix. That's fine. But it more so speaks volumes. Like, it shows you, okay, they're putting it on their platform. That's an intriguing thing. What's up, Johnny G? How you doing? Deathstroke over Deadpool? I don't think so. Yeah, I would take Deadpool for sure. Oh, yeah, I can't wait for horror. Multiverse of Madness, I've been so hyped for that ever since it was announced. Yeah, you know, I think a horror element to it makes it, like, that's one thing that I loved about with DC, when you're talking about what the hell, Scarecrow. I felt like Scarecrow had a horror element to it, as well as Joker, as well as Bane, but Bane was almost more brutality. I feel, you know, I felt like Joker, because I guess the big thing with horror is it's psychological. And when you're dealing with, say, like Kilgrave and Jessica Jones, you're like, okay, that's horror. I mean, that's legit horror. I mean, we're talking, has the gore of a horror movie and a horror TV series, has, you know, I mean, in a way, you know, because I don't know how to call his powers, what you want to call them. I mean, basically, you know, it's paranormal. I guess it's somewhat paranormal to be able to tell you to do something, and then you have to do it, and you can't stop doing it. You know, you don't realize how scary it is until Kilgrave just says, now throw coffee on yourself, and the guy throws coffee on himself, or now walk off that building, or now work yourself until you die. Like, and that's the way it is. So it is, it's pretty crazy. And, you know, I definitely am excited for the horror elements that will be in Multiverse of Madness, but I'm like, the Netflix series have me so interested in how they could mold into the MCU. And again, going back to what this is all about, what this is all based around, Hawkeye, I think it can really connect all of these different characters that we love. I mean, I know it may not have done as well as they wanted to, and I think because they put so much money into these shows, it did extremely well, but they had, you know, they needed to hit up here, and I think they hit like here. But what it comes down to is this: fans are constantly talking about wanting Jon Bernthal back as the Punisher. Charlie Cox is one of the most searched things on Twitter, if you really look at it, because people are trying to make sure he's in Spider-Man, which, I mean, come on. I'm pretty sure he's in Spider-Man, the new one that's coming out. I don't think Daredevil is. I don't think he's Daredevil in it. And it's not to say that he hasn't already become Daredevil, but I don't think they will show him as Daredevil, because I think, to me, No Way Home is a Spider-Man film. It is all about Spider-Man. It's about the Spider-Verse, and it's not going to throw Venom in there. It's not going to throw Morbius in there. It's not going to throw Daredevil. It's not going to throw Kingpin. I think they really wanted to drive home the point that they are making this about Spider-Man and the Sinister Six, and that's it. They don't want to add anything else, and that's. You don't think Jon Bernthal looks Italian enough? I think he looks like a perfect, like, New Yorker, you know, Italian New Yorker, mobster look. You know, he was in, I just found this out. He was in How I Met Your Mother. And he was in the Saints of, I forget the Saints, the one that just came out, Saints of Newark. He was in that. I'm trying to think what else he was in. Walking Dead. You know, he's in a bunch of stuff, but see, I disagree with that, Johnny. But that's interesting. I haven't heard that. Bernthal, though, he just put another level onto Punisher, in my opinion. After seeing that, after seeing the movies aren't bad. The first one's good. The second one's not so great. But this series was so good. So good. I love the different connections to Daredevil. You know, I thought it was cool. I think this is the only show where Claire was not in it, which I found really funny. Played by Rosario Dawson. I am almost positive Claire is in every single show in this series, in this Netflix Marvel world, but she was not in The Punisher. So, you know, and I'm also curious, do they bring in Claire? Do they not? Do they recast? Rosario Dawson's a huge actress now. I mean, she's already on the Disney payroll because she's going to be playing Ahsoka. Ahsoka's going to have, you know, her own TV series, all of that. Like, you know, they could totally get her into the MCU. The question is, what would she play? All of that. Or would she, you know, reprise that role? Who knows? But again, it all goes around. We talked about all different theories on this channel with Falcon Winter Soldier, with Loki, with WandaVision. But I think more of the comic booky, video game-esque, more of those connections like Kingpin, like the Hell's Kitchen crew, that is going to come and stem from Hawkeye. Because we talked about WandaVision and how that could bring in X-Men. If you guys watched any of my videos. We talked about how it could bring in X-Men. We talked about how it could be the birth of mutants. We talked about, you know, the multiverse, the obvious connections. We talked about the fact that, I mean, I don't know how many people agreed with me on this, but we talked about the fact that, you know, the director of Sword, we talked about the fact that he could end up being Ultron. So, you know, that was WandaVision. And then looking at Falcon Winter Soldier, you know, on this channel, we talked about the potential of Thunderbolts, Red Hulk, you know, maybe even seeing, you know, some connections to the Spider-Man characters, like Silver Sable. You know, we talked about that. And even connections to the MCU, or not the MCU, the X-Men, you know, that X-Men universe. You know, Omega Red was, by every stretch, rumored to be in there, and he wasn't. So that was interesting. And then with Loki, it's like, what did we not talk about with Loki? Because Loki was cosmic. Loki is all about the multiverse. The possibilities are endless, like basically endless with Loki. But with Hawkeye, it's more dumbed down. It's more like Falcon Winter Soldier, where it can introduce these more human characters instead of more cosmic entities. And I think that's the cool thing, is that while we love cosmic, we love Guardians of the Galaxy, we love Thanos, we love, you know, all of the Eternal, like everything that Eternals brought in, we love that. It's cool. I mean, it's part of it. It's cool. But sometimes you can't beat the classic. People want to see Frank Castle in the MCU. They want to see Wilson Fisk. They want to see Matt Murdock and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. You know what? I think this is exactly what they're trying to do. I think these type of shows will bring these characters and link them. So, I will check on that for you, Nick, because I am not sure. That is a great question. I want Andrew Garfield to catch MJ when he's falling and no. I'm almost positive he's going to. It seems way too obvious, you know. But yeah, let me check out Hawkeye and see when it's projected to end. Because, I mean, it would have to be, right? There's not enough time in between Spider-Man. Let's see. I'm checking right now. The Echo series is going to be very interesting. Oh, there's only 5 episodes. There's only 2 more episodes, and it ends on December 15th. So, yeah. That's what it's saying, anyway. Yeah. I mean, unless I'm missing something. The Hawkeye producer confirmed Kingpin for episode 5. Regardless if you've seen the show, he apparently confirmed that. So that's oh, there's 6 episodes. It concludes on December 22nd. So never mind. It says 6 episodes. Okay. All right, let's look at the comments here. Wait, is Hawkeye going to end? Okay, I just did that. So yeah, it's going to end after No Way Home, a week after. MCU will make my boy Punisher look soft. I don't know about that. I mean, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, there's 3 episodes remaining. I'd say in the next 3 episodes, we're probably going to get Yelena. I mean, Yelena's going to be in it. They didn't just tease Yelena at the end of Black Widow to not have her in this show at all. So she's going to be in it. But then Kingpin will be in the last episode. That's confirmed. Or he'll be in episode 5, confirmed by the producer. And there's a good chance that Daredevil could be in it as well. But yeah, this Hawkeye series, like, they're using most of these series anyway to bridge into the MCU. I mean, Yelena Belova is literally part of the cast. If you look it up right now, she's on the cast. So, rumored to appear Olga Kurilenko as Taskmaster. I don't know why, but Scarlett Johansson is Natasha Romanoff, although it'll probably be like a flashback. Wyatt Russell is John Walker. That's another one. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Val, a.k.a. Madam Hydra. Yeah, I think... and they keep in mind, I mean, they could use this series to kind of tease at the end. They could tease like a Moon Knight. They could tease Miss Marvel. They could tease, She-Hulk. I mean, they could do that. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting how they do it. Are you guys liking the show so far? I'm in the same boat with you there, Nick. I'm definitely looking forward to No Way Home. I'll check. It's the last one for 2021. That's what I do know. It's definitely the last one for 2021. But 2022 will have a few of them. Yeah, I'm thinking 2022 will have She-Hulk. Because initially, let's see. Miss Marvel is in summer of 2022. Okay, so Miss Marvel comes before She-Hulk, I guess. She-Hulk is to be TBD 2022, so probably at the end. Moon Knight is TBD 2022, so probably at the end. So I guess we're getting 3 Marvel Studios, Disney Plus TV shows. So it'll be Miss Marvel in summer, and then at the end in December, likely Moon Knight, She-Hulk. Well, they're TBD. So in all likelihood, theoretically, you would want Miss Marvel in the summer. You'd want She-Hulk or Moon Knight, whatever you prefer, in an October slot, and then one in a December slot. So that way you have October, November for Star Wars, December, and then in the summer you'd probably, so October, September, August, you'd probably want it August or July for, you know, She-Hulk. You'd want to separate them if you're Disney Plus, and that's what I expect them to do. Because that's the thing. It's the Star Wars series. Because Star Wars TV shows in 2022, like Mandalorian is going to be in 2022. So, you know, they might even put it in November, one of them. Like, because that the Andor TV series is going to be in 2022. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mandalorian Season 3. Ahsoka is TBD, and Rangers of the New Republic, as well as Lando, the Acolyte, the droid story. So, like, we don't know when those are coming out, but a lot of them are 2022. So they're likely going to split them apart. But yes, I'm going to watch American Underdog. 100%. You didn't like What If, Nick? I thought What If was great. I really enjoyed it. And I'm not I'm not a huge animated series guy. I like DBZ, you know, I like Dragon Ball, but for the most part, animated shows don't really do much for me. Although I did like Invincible on Amazon. Can't wait for season 2 of that. But yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with What If. Really did like it. I heard they're going to do a live action What If at some point, which I can't wait for. What is funny is that Robert Kirkman wrote the What If series in comics, and then Invincible. He created Invincible. So those are 2 of the 3 animated shows that I like. That's funny. Yeah, the next Disney Plus show, though, I think is going to be Miss Marvel. It's not going to be She-Hulk. There's so many people that really just don't care about Miss Marvel. I think it'll be all right. I'm intrigued to see if these get pushed back at all. I'm worried to see if they are, because Doctor Strange got pushed to May 6th. I mean, it was scheduled for May 7th in 2021, and it was supposed to be March, I think, 22nd. So that's going to be brutal waiting for that. Great question, Nick. I do not know. I mean, I think at some point, potentially, you know, Avengers 5 or Avengers 6. But if you ask me, the way I see it is if Spider-Man, with the news that, if you guys didn't already know, Spider-Man is confirmed for another trilogy. if Spider-Man's confirmed for another trilogy, that tells me that all of that talk about him taking up the mantle of Iron Man, to me, that was legit. Because I thought that was kind of a bridge gimmicky thing. I felt like they were just saying that as part of the story. So then, you know, he'd have 3, 4, 5 movies where, like, it sounds to me like they're going to try to go to 9. And if they go to 9 movies in total, like, I'm talking just Spider-Man movies, because he'll be in more than 9 if he does that. If they do that, then that tells me he's going to be the leader of the Avengers. That's what it seems to me like. They're trying to make him the face. So that's the thing, is he's not a leader yet. He shouldn't be a leader yet. He's a younger one. And right now they're kind of having, essentially, Doctor Strange is leading the Avengers. I mean, actually, I don't even know if I would say it's him. It'd probably be Wong at this point. I don't know who is, to be honest with you. But I would say this, is that right now, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, the younger Spider-Man, is not leading the Avengers. And I think by them upping his deal, extending Tom Holland, they're having him grow both literally and into the show, into the series, into the, you know, the cinematic universe as the leader of the Avengers. And so I start to wonder, in Avengers 5 or 6 down the road, would Robert Downey Jr. make a cameo appearance, or would he come back? I just don't see him coming back. Like, he wouldn't come back as a normal role. What people forget is that Iron Man wasn't anywhere near as big as Spider-Man. Spider-Man has always been Marvel's cash cow. It's why Sony still has it. It's why, like, Fox got rid of the X-Men. All of these, you know, different places that had, because when Marvel was broke and they had to sell away all their rights, Sony made sure to grab Spider-Man. That's the cash cow. Spider-Man makes more money, makes enough money with the merchandise and with the movie sales. Spider-Man makes enough money to keep Sony Studios afloat on its own, because Sony Studios isn't doing that well. So that's the thing. But when you find out that they came to an agreement, the way Amy Pascal says he's going to be in the MCU, they're going to do another trilogy, that's a good sign. That tells me the plan is still intact. He's going to be the face of the Avengers. But you're asking me about Robert Downey Jr. And to me, I think it's going to be, if he comes back, it will be a cameo basis. It will be a multiverse type of deal. And I understand, I'm pretty sure he said he didn't want to do that, or he didn't want to come back to life or whatever. But if it was a multiversal thing, I wouldn't mind it, as long as it was quick and done the right way. I just don't think, at least in my opinion, I just don't think that they can afford to bring him back, because it gets rid of the whole finality of it. You know, that's a big issue to me. Plus, you're going to have Ironheart, you're going to have Iron Lad, the younger Avengers. You know, you don't need another Iron Man, but that's what they're probably planning. And he's not going to be recast. I think, if anything, it would be a cameo in the multiverse. But that's just my thoughts on that. Spidey does have mass appeal for sure. I think it's going to be Spider-Man as the main leader. Oh yeah, Spider-Man movies are about to hit another level. I mean, that's the thing, is that this is probably the most hyped movie I've seen in my life. What I find funny, for all those people that didn't like The Amazing Spider-Man, they didn't like Andrew Garfield, they sure seem excited to see him again. Yeah, it's going to be a regular thing. I don't think, by the way, the multiverse is going to get fixed within the next 10 years. I think they'll keep it going. I don't think it's going to be big enough where it ruins everything, but if you think that the Multiverse of Madness is going to be the movie that fixes everything, I just don't agree. I think it'll probably end on a cliffhanger, to be honest with you. I don't see there being finality to that. I don't see them fixing the multiverse. Ant-Man, and if they do, it's going to be done very quickly and then temporarily broken again, because I feel like Ant-Man Quantumania is going to re-break the multiversal, war open again if they fix it. That's the thing. They're going to keep this going, and I don't blame them. I don't mind the multiverse. I actually love it. But I think they have to worry about, if they drag it on too long, it could really ruin everything. And it just becomes a real slippery slope if all of a sudden no one can die. You're constantly having the multiverse. There's 5 different Spider... I don't know. There could be an issue with it. So they got to make sure they do it the right way. And I trust Kevin Feige over anybody to do it the right way. I think Spider-Man just has that spark. Kids love him. His colors are vibrant. He makes jokes while fighting. His powers are cool. When you're a kid, you're going to love as an adult. Yeah, exactly. I always looked at Spider-Man as like PG-13 Deadpool. Deadpool's like a rated R superhero. Spider-Man has the quips and all of that, but he always keeps it PG-13, which is, very kid-friendly. And the vibrant colors. No, I agree with you. I hate spiders, and Spider-Man is by far my favorite character. So it has, I don't know. It's just, he's a great character all around. I think they always got good voice acting out of him in the animated series. And I think they had 3 really great actors play him in the live action. Well, there was other live action that I never saw. I will not comment on. I didn't watch. I don't know. So, let's see. True, I'm in the minority when I say I love the Amazing Spider-Man movies. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is overhated, I feel like. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was very Sony-driven, which was my issue. It's just like, what was it? It was Sony, Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire was very Sony-driven, where, Sam Raimi had an idea of what he wanted to do, and they wanted him to, they forced the envelope, they pushed the envelope to really force multiple villains into that world. And the problem is they just didn't have enough time to tell the story. They didn't have enough time for Venom. They didn't really introduce Venom that well. They didn't give Venom enough depth. And then on top of it, oh, by the way, Sandman, on top of that, you have the plot twist that connects to the first movie with Uncle Ben. And then on top of that, you have New Goblin. So it got a little out of hand because there were too many villains in that moment. It's just like, Amazing Spider-Man 2, talk about Electro and the Goblin, and it's just, it's just too much. So I will say that that's a big thing there, and why I feel like people, overhated Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I like all the movies. I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 is extremely underrated. That doesn't mean it's not the worst Spider-Man movie, but I still think it's way overhated. I agree with you. I think the best one, by a lot of people would agree, is Spider-Man Far From Home. I think that's the best one of any Spider-Man movie. But I think the best old movie is the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2, because I think Doc Ock is by far the best villain. I know everyone is talking about Green Goblin. I know Green Goblin is going to be the headliner in this one. And Willem Dafoe is amazing. I love Willem Dafoe. Anything that he's in, it's awesome. Whether it be Spider-Man as Green Goblin and Harry Osborn, or, he's the investigator, the private investigator in American Psycho. Either way, he's awesome. But I still feel like there's just a different level with Doc Ock. I don't know what it is. It's the fact that he's actually a nice guy, and he's overpowered by the loss of his wife and, the tentacles, the metal arms. I just feel like he's the best one out of all of them. Well, actually, that's false. I would say Mysterio's the best one, but they were dealing with a lot less. CGI wasn't as good, things like that. Spider-Man 2 feels more impactful. Spider-Man 1 is the thing that started it all. I like it a lot, and I've watched it so many times. But you know what Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 1 is? It's really tacky. You love it. It's great. It doesn't... It feels dated. We love Tobey. We love Aunt May, Mary Jane. Some of you hate Mary Jane. I like Harry personally. I think Harry steals the show in the third one. I think Harry and that, his brain injury and going from good and bad and kind of, I feel like that really stole the show in the third one. I guess the whole, like, Spider-Man with the symbiote in the third one and, like, his emotions were all over the place. But I think they went a little too far with some of that stuff. The dancing is ridiculous. They didn't need to do that. And they didn't need to have, a domestic violence, depiction of Peter Parker. It's like, bro, this is everyone's hero. Why would you have him hit Mary Jane? I'm not saying he did on purpose, but you get what I'm saying is that I wouldn't have had that. I wouldn't have put that in there. I get they were trying to show, though, what the symbiote can do, how it can change personality and all of that, but I wasn't a huge fan of that. Ant-Man versus Kang. Gee, I wonder who's going to win, although even if Ant-Man wins, another version of Kang will come back. That's true. It's very true. I'm glad they introduced Kang to the MCU. I'm excited for that. Tobey Maguire trilogy gave us top-tier memes. That's true. Very true. Bully Maguire is just iconic. Do you think if Sony didn't force Sam Raimi to do what they wanted instead of what he wanted, Tobey would be our Spider-Man in the MCU? Wow. That's a great question. I mean, Tobey's gotten a lot older, so I don't know if he'd still be doing that. And I know he really wanted to do Brothers. He really wanted to be a part of that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. But I don't know. That's a really good question. I mean, it just feels like that would be way too long. But at the same time, I mean, what has he been in? He didn't really... It's not that he didn't make it in cinema, but he doesn't star in really anything anymore. Like, he's more of like a secondary character. Like, Brothers was that moment where you really saw him explode onto the scene and you're like, wow. Like, in Brothers, Tobey Maguire was at his best, I thought. I mean, he was a phenomenal actor coming back from the war, and really having to play just a shell-shocked, character and, with PTSD. And I thought he did a great job, the anger that he showed and, just kind of, it's hard to play that type of role. Playing a multiple personality type of role is tough. And so I thought his depiction of that character in Brothers was like his best work. But after that, it really, he wasn't starring in things like, but I mean, I guess the same thing, Andrew Garfield. That is why you have actors like, say, what's his name? The guy for Doom, not Doom. The guy for, yeah, Dune, not Doom. Dune. Forget his name. Thomas something. But anyway, the main character in Dune, like the actor, he came out and said one of the tips that he was given is to never be in a superhero movie or never be in an MCU film or whatever. And like, I get that to a degree because you get typecasted, and it's like, if you're not, there's not a type there you can be cast in, you just don't get casted. You don't get, talked to, you don't get those calls. And so, I feel like, this is why I feel comfortable about Tom Holland in the MCU and not leaving, besides the fact he just signed a huge deal. Tom Holland isn't leaving the MCU because they aren't holding him hostage. They're not asking him. When the Avengers came out, when those movies came out, they were coming out quickly. Like, they were coming out with all those movies. If you really look at it, how many of those guys, like Chris Evans, like Robert Downey Jr., how many of those guys were in other movies? You know, the thing is, Tom Holland laid down the law. He's like, yeah, I mean, I will absolutely play Spider-Man. I love playing Spider-Man. But I'm also going to be, you know, Nathan Drake in Uncharted. And I'm also going to be in Cherry. I'm also going to be in, you know, The Devil You Know. And it's like, you know, the different movies that he's been in already. He did like 3 movies in 1 year. I mean, that's Tom Holland. And so he's not going to be like Tobey Maguire. He's not really going to be like Andrew Garfield, although Andrew Garfield has a couple good movies that he was starred in as well. He's already like ahead of those guys. That's the crazy thing. That's what I don't think we're realizing. Tom Holland is a different level of actor. He is the future of this industry. And it's not just the superhero movie industry. He is the future, period. Now, the question is, how long will he go on? Who knows? But I do think he's going to run out that time as Spider-Man. I think, you know, in 20 years or whatever, I don't know if he'll still be Spider-Man, but I think he's going to be a well-established, top-notch actor in the industry still. And, you know, I kind of have the feeling that, you know, I don't know. I mean, I feel like he's just going to be fine. Like, you know, he won't be typecasted because he's already shown you that he can be multiple. And I think that was the good thing. You know, if Daniel Radcliffe was able to, you know, turn around, go back in time, and before he really became Harry Potter, like, even though he was Harry Potter, like, before he, you know, got into the later portions of Harry Potter, if he was able to go back and have those type of movies that Tom Holland was doing, he wouldn't have been put into that role, pigeonholed, looked at as Harry Potter. You know, I don't look at Tom Holland as just Spider-Man because I've seen him in other stuff and he's so good in it and his movies do well. He's worked with the Russo brothers. Like, he's not just that. But I'm really curious to see when he becomes Nathan Drake and we see that on the film. You know, what is that going to mean? Am I going to look at him more as Nathan Drake than Peter Parker? That's an interesting thing. We don't know. But I can tell you right now, he is in a good situation. And for MCU fans that don't want to see him go, he's in probably the best situation you could be in if you're rooting for a guy to not want to leave that industry. Because he has already figured out, hey, I'm not going to be assumed as just Spider-Man. He's going to do other things. He does other things. But the thing is, he doesn't have to leave Spider-Man in order to do other things. Other guys, they might take time. They might, you know, ask to be killed off. All of that, recasted to do other things. He's not. So that's a good sign. I remember watching the Civil War trailer and Spider-Man showed up at the end. I thought it was Andrew Garfield. Then I saw the movie and was shocked. I didn't know any news of a reboot. Yeah, it's weird the way they worked that in. It's weird that they introduced Spider-Man in Civil War. I mean, they also introduced Black Panther as well. So, you know. They did it the right way, though, I think. It was different, but they did it the right way. I like the way they did it. He had Great Gatsby, but at the same time, Leo was the lead. Leo is Toby's best friend, so maybe Leo threw him a bone there. Interesting. Funny how people told him that. But now, major actors want to get involved. Keanu Reeves said he loved it. Yeah, exactly. And did you see, like, Will Smith? Will Smith is trying to find a way to get into the MCU. They're trying to find a role for him. He's interested. The MCU's interested in him. Will Smith played Deadshot in the DC universe in the Suicide Squad, not the newest one, but the first one. By the way, first one is underrated. I will say that. I'm not going to get too much into it. First one's underrated. But yeah, I mean, exactly right, Nick. You're talking about Keanu Reeves. You're talking about Will Smith. You're talking about Michael Fassbender. You're talking about, Liam Neeson. I mean, all these guys, and I think that's the thing is that, be control of your own career, I guess, and I think we're seeing that more and more, but we're also Timothy Chalamet. That's what I was thinking of. But then we're seeing guys like Timothy Chalamet that are, and who's to say they are listening, right? Who's to say he's going to follow that advice? I mean, he might not. He might change his mind, and he might be cast as a, member in the MCU. But as of right now, he's kind of coming off that way. So is Denis Villeneuve, who directed or either directed or wrote Dune. What I would also say is Dune is kind of like a superhero movie in general. I mean, it's different, but it's that sci-fi. I don't know. It just seems like a little weird to me, that whole, not wanting to be in the MCU thing or whatever. But, I don't know. I think Leo as Craven, that would be something. I would definitely be interested in that. I'd like to see him in the MCU. I'm a big Leonardo DiCaprio fan, so. Curious, before I go, anything else, guys? I think we're going to wrap up the show. It's been over an hour. Obviously, like I said, if you saw me early on, I realize I'm doing this during the day. Probably not the best case when most of my viewers are here around 8. But I felt like going live, and I felt like starting my MCU run here. Doing a little something different tonight. We're going to do another live stream later on. It's going to be sports related. But yeah, going to start doing this, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. Johnny, Nick, thank you guys for interacting. It's been a lot of fun. And I will see you all soon. You guys take care. And if you haven't already, be sure to watch Hawkeye, premiering now and streaming now on Disney+. For Jake Ellenbogen, this has been MCU Edge. You can follow at MCU Edge on Twitter. You can follow me at JK Bogan. That's going to do it. So we'll be doing a live stream later on, more sports related, but bye for now. Later.